Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, finding which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for an honest book review from a real mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. This week's book review is a uniquely narrated story from a therapy dog's perspective titled Luna Howls at the Moon by Kristen O'Donnell Tubb. And it follows an evening's journey of the three children who are in group therapy who set out, sort of unbeknownst to their counselor and their parents, to find the missing member of their group. So before I go any further, I'm just going to read a little bit of the opening to give you a taste of the story. So this is kind of before the story begins, all right? You're not our dog, Luna. Stay, Caleb says. That part stings. Of course I'm their dog. I'm their dog. If I go with them, I will most certainly give up all the credits that I've earned toward being a therapy dog. I am 4 visits away. 3 if this meeting counts. A whisker away, almost. Will they still let me be a therapy dog if I go? Will they let me be one if I don't? I try to remember if we covered runaway clients in my training. My instinct tells me I can't let them just wander away. These clients, these humans, I love them. They are my pack, my duty. They are still full of holes that haven't yet been filled, and my job is to fill them, to guide them. My job is to be their moon. So that is just sort of an opening that the author gives, a little taste of the story before you jump in. And then the first chapter is called Not Almost. And so it's very cute, the story being told from her perspective of the therapy dog. And at the beginning, it kind of starts with a little bit of her being unsure of herself because she isn't fully have her credentials as a service therapy dog, but she's very close, almost. So Luna's owner, Tessa, is the counselor who is working with the 4 children in the story, whose names are Beatrice, Caleb, Amelia, and Hector. Tessa is trying out group therapy for the 4 of them. At their second meeting in a church basement, Tessa's therapy is really interrupted by the parents arguing in the upper level. So Tessa goes to kind of quiet them down, and during that time that she's away, Beatrice suggests that they leave to find Hector, who's basically a no-show. And in their previous counseling meeting, Hector brought up that he had a hoverboard, and so Beatrice is obsessed with this idea of like, does this thing really work? And he was supposed to bring it this night, and so the fact that he didn't show up, and of course there's no hoverboard, Beatrice is like, I'm solving this problem. So she really instigates the group into leaving therapy and trying to find him. So she's the first to kind of climb through the basement window. The other children follow, committed to her duty. Luna actually struggles to make it through the window. The children end up having to rescue her and get her out so she doesn't fall back in. And then the children proceed to command her to stay, but Luna will not leave the children alone, and she goes after them as they leave and enter the city, which is in Austin, Texas, to find Hector and his hoverboard. So city life at night is not a place for 3 young children to be alone. They go through many mishaps and misadventures as they work through some of the issues that really brought them to therapy in the first place. And so they form a bond and a friendship with one another. And that really was what Tessa was hoping would come from group therapy. So through it all, though, Luna is with them. She's narrating what's going on. One of the aspects of the story that's introduced while they're roaming the streets and looking for the park that they believe Hector to be at is this like mangy, orange, one-eyed cat named Sandpaper. Well, Sandpaper becomes an additional narrator within the story. So we have the cat, and then we also have Luna. Now, the cat is really talking to Luna, and Luna's responding back. But it's actually an adorable addition to the story. I didn't really see that coming. But the way that it's sort of brought in is that the Sandpaper, the cat, is really narrating the adventure and the quest as it relates to an actual storyline. And so with the structure and the characterization, so she calls, Sandpaper calls Luna like the protagonist, and talks about some of the characters, like do they have a mentor? when they reach the climax of the story, all of those different things. And so it's super cute to kind of add that element and layer into the story itself about how a story structure actually works. And so I thought that was really cute of a way to sort of introduce that. Just some few quick notes. On page 40, the parents are complaining upstairs that the children end up overhearing them, and they're talking about how their insurance doesn't really cover one-on-one sessions, and so you see a lot of anger and angst from some of the parents, and so that could be something just to kind of make you aware of as you're navigating through the story or trying to decide if it's the appropriate one for your children to read. I definitely encourage you to go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. You're going to get a full written detail about some other aspects within the story. There is a point in the story where Beatrice is trying to encourage Caleb to cuss, believing that that will help relieve some of the stress and anxiety that he's feeling. And so he doesn't end up actually using a cuss word. He uses checkmate. And so that's kind of cute because she's like, Beatrice is shocked, like, how is that, like, basically the most foulest word that you could think of. But Caleb does have a response for her. And so through the rest of the story, when there are times at which you might use a cuss word, the children scream checkmate. So therapy for Beatrice is mainly picking it from the story. It seems to be because her grandmother has passed away, and she does make some comments in the story that her mom is more like a friend and her Grammy was more like an actual mother to her. Caleb's parents are in the midst of a pretty nasty divorce, and they're trying to sort of use Caleb in the midst of that divorce sort of against each other, but he also has a huge phobia of germs. And so there are some fun things in the story kind of related to that as he's got to overcome some of those things. Amelia is basically chosen to be mute for the time. Her house was intentionally set on fire. No details are given about what sort of caused some of that. So I find that kind of interesting and introducing. There are some two like teenage goons who go after the children several times in the story, but it does end with the two of them sort of being taken in. Again, I want to encourage you to go to my website, holdingsteadfastreaders.com, to get some more details about this book, specifically to make sure that it's appropriate for your child to read. So there are things that I don't necessarily share through the video review. Overall, I thought the story did a nice job, really through the lens of a service dog, to sort of shed some light on some circumstances of life and some experiences that children unfortunately find themselves in. So while running away from parents to navigate a city at night is not an action that we would encourage with our children, the situation does open a window for readers to explore the experiences that children, maybe their same age, have faced in the past or are currently going through in a broken world. So it can develop sort of an empathy and a compassion. It encourages readers who love to be helpers to maybe even consider a profession in which they can help those in need who are working through trauma. Maybe the idea of counseling or working in training service dogs. The story overall is clean. The children learn that they're resilient. Finding friends you can confide in is important to help shoulder the burden that they don't have to carry their pain alone. In the end, all the children are eager to continue group therapy and continue to build those relationships. So that's Luna, Howls at the Moon by Kristen O'Donnell Tubb. So if this sounds appealing to you at all or sounds like something interesting that your student or child would enjoy reading, definitely Luna, Howls at the Moon is clean. Definitely because we're dealing with therapy and some trauma. Make sure that you go to holdingsteadfastreaders.com to get a little bit more details about that. And I thank you for joining me for this week's book review, and I hope you'll join me next week for another book review.